Hello, everyone, and welcome to Episode 5 of Blood Cancer Explained, an ongoing series exploring the blood cancer landscape. In previous episodes, we've delved into the unique landscape of blood cancers, exploring treatment disparities, the emotional impact of blood cancer, and the complexities of diagnoses such as myeloid leukemia. We're pleased to welcome you to the series' fifth and final installment, hosted by AbbVie.
Hello, my name is Ilke Limonju, and I'm the Director of Business Unit Communications and Public Affairs for Oncology at AbbVie. In today's episode, we'll focus on multiple myeloma, understanding what it is and who it impacts. We'll also explore the importance of diversity in clinical trials, particularly in multiple myeloma, and groups like the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation and blackdoctor.org, and how they are helping to improve representation. With that, I'd like to introduce the panelists who are joining us today. Dr. Craig Emmett Cole is Associate Professor at Wayne State School of Medicine and a member of the Multiple Myeloma Multidisciplinary Team at Karmanos Cancer Institute. Ann Quinn Young joined the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation in 2002 and currently serves as Chief Mission Officer. She ensures that organizational initiatives and priorities are aligned with its mission of accelerating a cure for each and every patient. Reggie Ware has served as CEO of blackdoctor.org for almost 20 years. Reggie and his team produce unique and culturally relevant health content for people of color, and it's written by trusted voices. Dr. Cole, let's start with you. Can you please tell us more about what happens in the bone marrow of patients with multiple myeloma?
Multiple myeloma is a cancer of the plasma cells. So the plasma cells are a type of white blood cell found in the bone marrow or the blood factory of the body. The plasma cells do exactly kind of what they sound like. They produce blood plasma, and specifically they produce antibodies which help us fight infection. One thing about myeloma is it's a great masquerader, that a lot of the presenting symptoms that patients can have with this disease are similar to other conditions: fatigue, bone pain, high calcium, kidney dysfunction. Frequent infections can sound like a lot of other diseases.
Ann, tell us more about the multiple myeloma patient and how their experiences differ from other blood cancer patients.
Multiple myeloma is the second most common blood cancer. However, overall, it's fairly uncommon. It's estimated that approximately 160,000 Americans have myeloma. It's more common in males than females. It's more common in older individuals. The median age of diagnosis is 69, with only 2% of patients who are under the age of 40 having the diagnosis. Multiple myeloma is also twice as common in the Black community. About 22% of patients are Black, as opposed to about 13% in the general population. Black patients are also more likely to be diagnosed earlier, up to 5 years earlier than other races and ethnicities. And it's really important to note this discrepancy in incidence as we talk about how to make treatment and access to quality care more equitable, because this is a population that has been historically underserved by our healthcare system.
Such an important point.
Myeloma does differ from other cancers, particularly solid tumors, in that many patients have a delay in diagnosis or often are misdiagnosed with many other conditions, because as Dr. Cole mentioned, the symptoms tend to be pretty vague. So it's really important for patients to get that right diagnosis and get it quickly so that they can get the best care and get the best possible outcome.
Reggie, how do we help patients with multiple myeloma during their diagnosis and treatment journey?
Our approach at BDO is to create a very, very strong patient advocate. We found that when the patient is empowered with information, education, and a game plan, then they're able to go to the doctor and participate and have that doctor-patient visit become what we call shared decision-making. And so we've got to get people smarter. We have to get them informed. We have to make sure that information is continually accessible. We try to provide patients with crucial information that supports them throughout every stage of their journey.
And your focus is also helping to share information with patients. Can you tell us how you do so?
We recognize the importance of educating and, most importantly, empowering patients and their families so that they can advocate for the best possible care, so that they can get the best outcome and the longest survival. To guide newly diagnosed patients, we developed a framework called the Right Track. There are 3 steps. We call them the 3 T's: building the right team, having the right diagnostic tests, and getting on the right treatment plan. Our cornerstone is really our patient navigation center, and that's manned by 3 former oncology nurses who in total have more than 60 years of treating myeloma patients. And they are on call. You can talk to them on video, on phone call, via email to answer whatever questions patients and caregivers have along their journey. And they're there to make sure patients are getting the answers they need and get on the right track as quickly as possible.
Absolutely agree on the importance of education. Unfortunately, non-white Americans only constitute roughly 10 to 15% of multiple myeloma trial participants. This underrepresentation underscores disparities in access to clinical trials and treatments among BIPOC populations, also known as Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Let's dive deeper into this very important issue and talk about why it is important to increase access to clinical trials, not only in multiple myeloma patients, but for all cancer patients and for all patients. Dr. Cole, why don't you start?
No, thanks. And, I think to back up a little, why do we do clinical trials? We do clinical trials in order to find a cure for cancer, to find the best ways to diagnose cancer, to find the best ways to maintain people with cancer, to treat their cancer, to make their quality of lives better. It expands the medical knowledge, and it makes, everyone's treatment safer and more efficacious. Unfortunately, the clinical trials have lacked participant diversity. And unless you can improve the diversity of clinical trials, really it will only precipitate more inequities and disparities in healthcare in general. And that profound lack of diversity in clinical trials, especially among Blacks, who are disproportionately affected by certain cancers, especially multiple myeloma, is an issue that we really can't overlook because it is a health disparity issue at its very core.
Could not agree with you more.
What we do at BDO is we're really working really hard at getting our community to look at clinical trials differently. It used to be that on average, a Black person would say, no, I don't want to be a part of a clinical trial. But what we've found and what we've seen post-COVID is that people are really embracing clinical trials. We even did a survey, and we asked our audience, what would be preventing you from clinical trials? And surprisingly, the number 1 response was, we've never been asked.
That is such important information. Thank you for sharing. Now let's talk about the disparities in multiple myeloma diagnosis and treatment. Anne, how do these disparities affect clinical trials and treatment outcomes, and specifically for multiple myeloma patients?
We know from our own COMPASS study, as well as from other published research, that patients who are treated in a community setting, i.e. those who do not have that myeloma specialist, have worse outcomes. And unfortunately, this affects Black patients disproportionately. We know when Black myeloma patients receive timely and appropriate care, studies show they have the same results as other patient populations. Moreover, our own COMPASS study found that Black patients actually have a lower incidence of high-risk disease, meaning that as a group, their overall outcome should be better than the other groups. So we are very concerned that if we don't, as a community, address these barriers to quality care, there is that continued risk that some patients may not benefit equally. We need to provide the infrastructure that ensures that every patient can benefit.
Thank you very much for that. This question is for all of the panelists. What are ways we can improve representation in clinical trials that all multiple myeloma patients can benefit from?
Oh, I'd love to answer this question. So from our perspective, to get more Blacks in clinical trials, I think the approach should be somewhat different. For example, we talked earlier about patients not being asked enough. The other piece of that is when we're talking about clinical trials, when we're listing clinical trials, I think we need to start with the patient population's mindset first. So, for example, our tagline is where wellness and culture connect. We know and we've seen that when clinical trials are mentioned on the BDO website, there tends to be more engagement. And so when we talk about getting more Blacks in clinical trials, we have to go where they are. Second thing I would say, and I think it's really important, is to include Black consumers, patients, caregivers, as part of a advisory board to get feedback, to listen, right? Most people, we feel, don't ask or listen to what Black patients are saying in terms of what their challenges are. And we've got to become aware that a person's perspective may be different from ours. And how do we come together so that we're really communicating the right opportunity in the best manner for that particular individual? So I think that's really the really important piece.
The MMRF is completely and deeply dedicated to making sure that clinical trials are as accessible and inclusive as possible. So we have several initiatives underway to achieve this. First, we provide support for lodging and transportation to patients who would otherwise be unable to participate in myeloma clinical trials. Now, this is for any single trial in multiple myeloma. We also sponsor our own clinical trials. This fall, we opened a new platform trial for patients who have relapsed or may be refractory to their last treatment. We were very intentional about ensuring that we enroll a representative patient population. We selected sites that have a track record of enrolling diverse patients, and we're requiring each of those sites to provide a diversity plan in line with recent FDA guidance. We also brought on an independent diversity officer, who in fact is Dr. Craig Cole, to ensure that we're being accountable to those goals.
Everything that Anne and everything that Reggie said was right on point from the patient and from the research perspective. And what we do as providers, one thing is to build awareness that, the diversity training that doctors have to do is so critical, because we know that when people have any underlying or hidden bias, they're less likely to ask their patients to be involved in clinical trials. And really what Ann and Reggie talking about, and what I'm hopefully talking about, is patient empowerment. I mean, if you can empower patients to ask about clinical trials, being involved in their care, and if you can get physicians to be able to listen and to engage their patients and involve in clinical trials, that is nothing you can't do with the power of enlightened physicians and an enlightened healthcare system and empowered patients.
Thank you to our esteemed panelists for the conversation today. We hope that all of you watching have found this conversation to be both informative and meaningful. Throughout the Blood Cancer Explained series, our goal has been to collaborate with global patient advocates to raise awareness about what is a blood cancer and to educate on the ongoing advancements in research and treatment options for these types of cancers. While this marks the final episode of Blood Cancer Explained, our commitment to supporting patients and caregivers remains unwavering and unchanged. As we conclude the Blood Cancer Explained series, I'd like to take a moment as AppV to thank all the panelists who have participated in the 5 episodes of Blood Cancer Explained. Together, I hope we have informed and better educated patients and caregivers about what is a blood cancer and all the treatment innovations that have come in the last decade. For more information on today's topics, please visit the resources available on the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation and blackdoctor.org websites. You can also explore additional videos and resources on appy.com as part of our Blood Cancer Explained series.
As a reminder, please note that the educational content of this video is not intended to be taken as medical advice and should not replace the recommendations and advice of your doctor. Please take a moment to review the disclaimer displayed on the screen. Thank you again for joining us.